Hello everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV. An afternoon apparently from Lee Wizkid. I left that on the screen when we were testing it. Afternoon Red, we only hate Manx, he said. Perfect, thank you so much. I am joined today by Lewis Aspinall and Andy Bell for this one. I've still got that thing up. It doesn't look great. Andy's in the middle. Lewis is on your right hand side. Lewis, I was looking at your logo before. Did you design that on ChatGPT?
My girlfriend did, yeah.
On ChatGPT?
She's done all my logo and everything like that, and she uses it in work. So she's thank you. Oh, thank you. Babe, if you're watching, there you go. There's your approval that you needed.
Well done, ChatGPT.
I got my girlfriend to make, at the time, ex-girlfriend to make a theme tune for my Northern Ireland podcast.
Yeah.
I broke up with her like a year later. I was like, can I still use the song, please? I still use it to this day.
Did she let you?
Yeah.
Did she? That's nice. It's an amicable breakup.
Yeah, totally. I just moved over here.
All right, fair enough. So I really like it, but I really want to move to Liverpool. So
just did a runner.
I still like the song, yeah.
It's a great song. Don't like you enough to stay. Anyway, we are here to talk Liverpool, Manchester United. It is, Andy, the first big game of Arne Slot's Liverpool career.
It is, yeah, and it's a bit of an outlier in terms of the first 7 fixtures as well, because I think the other 6 are against teams who finished in the bottom 10 last season or promoted teams. So, if we can get through this, the next 4, we could have a serious points total after 7 games. And obviously we're looking quite far ahead there in terms of 7 games. We're looking quite far ahead in terms of getting the job done here, because recent history, with the exception of the 7-0, which is quite the exception, by the way, we've struggled a little bit against Ten Hag's United, so we're going to need to do something different. Yeah,
absolutely. Obviously, last season, we had a 2-2 draw where we battered them at Old Trafford. We had a 0-0 draw where we battered them at Anfield, and then we had that horrible 4-3 injury time loss when we were ahead in the FA Cup 6th round, wasn't it, I think? So, 2 draws and 1 loss last season. We need to change that, really, don't we?
Yeah, I think one win in 5. I think even before that, then it was the 7-0 or something like that. But like you said, they're perfectly like we struggle against this Ten Hag team at points, and I don't know if it's emotion, which I think it might have been last season. I don't know if it's tactics or what, but yeah, we desperately need to change it. And to be honest, the way we're playing at the minute, I think we're in the perfect position to do it by the way that we're actually operating game by game.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I think, I think about the change of style, and I know we've seen goals so far this season, lads, where they have been very much reminiscent of a Klopp's Liverpool side, but, the structure's there to build up from the back, isn't it, Andy? And, when we were going against Ten Hag with Jurgen Klopp as our manager, we were playing basketball with Manchester United, and they were just as likely to hit us on the break as we were likely to hit them. If we can go there, take the ball away from them, and it would be fantastic to basically show Old Trafford that there's a different way of playing football, and after 2 weeks we're better at it than you are under your manager that you've had for about 2 years.
Totally. I think if you look at the 3 games last season, the one at Anfield is very simply they park the bus and we can't break them down. I think we still end up with, in terms of the expected goals, if you buy into that, much higher than them. We should have won the game. And then the other 2, you're right, are basketball games. And basketball games that we seem to dominate, we seem to have the better of. We were open in both games, but nowhere near as open as what they were. It was crazy, some of the chances we had, some of the breaks we had in the cup game at times. And I think in that one, our legs had just gone a little bit, and that proved sort of over the next 2 months our legs completely went there, and we couldn't really take advantage of that as much. So with this one, how's the Arne Slot ball gonna look against this Ten Hag side? We're not really sure as of yet. One thing is interesting though. I did a quick bit of maths this morning before I go back to my job on Monday, which is teaching maths. And over the 3,
getting your eye in.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, just a little warm up. Over the 3 games against United last season, the expected goals per shot, I think we have about 84 shots, is about 0.09. In the first 2 games this season that we've played, again, not a big sample size, but it's all we have. The expected goals per shot is 0.3. So we had lots of shots and lots of chances against United last year. Not too sure the quality of those chances was quite as good as what we'd hope. And hopefully this weekend we'll create the real high quality chances that'll help us put them away, which we didn't do last year.
What age group do you teach maths?
11 to 16.
11 to 16. Okay, so that's pretty good maths then, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah, it's pretty good. Like, are they actually good at it, or?
Well, some of them, yeah.
Do you get them to do expected goal stuff for yourself?
No, I can't.
Oh, you need to.
I've tried to sneak a bit of football in, but half the class aren't interested. So
okay, it's interesting. I mean, I really enjoyed maths in school, which is weird. But it was only when the teacher, nobody cares. Only when the teacher would explain what it's used for, like differentiation or something.
Yeah.
If you just turn around and say, well, that's how we get the phone signal to your phone from the satellite up there, then I can understand it and there's real practical use to it. If you don't explain it, then you've got no chance with me because I don't know what Pythagoras theorem is used for in real life. But there we go.
One of the starters, we have to do 4 questions for a starter as they come in, and on Derby Day I think I made the answer like 1995 or 19.95 for each one. Yes. And I completely ruined the lesson because half of them were blues and they were just like, yeah, we're not working for you today.
Absolutely. Well, those guys had a fun day out at the train station last week. Anyway, we are going to carry on with the talk about Manchester United. I think over the course of the 3 games, Lou, we did kind of, without proving it in the scoreline, we did kind of prove that we're a better side than them. And it's going to be massive for Ten Hag, isn't it? Because obviously they've signed Lenny Yoro, De Ligt, Zirkzee, Mazraoui, etc. 140 million quid. They've just signed, well, they're about to sign at time of filming this, Manuel Ugarte as well. They're going to have spent close to £180 million this summer. And yet I still feel much better about our squad than this.
Yeah, because like Slot said himself, there's not a lot to improve on. Obviously, we can say we need a number 6, we need a centre-back, absolutely. But Ten Hag's side was so disproportionate, it was broken, it was damaged to the point, and now they're having to sign so many players because of years of neglect for that club. And they've done well in the summer. I think for all that we can give them grief, they've absolutely smashed this transfer window, United, and getting Ugarte will be great. But I'm not nervous because we've seen how Ten Hag operates. Doesn't matter who he's got. He leaves such big gaps in midfield, and there's no Ugarte who can play against us now. He can join, but he's not registered in time. So there's still going to be all that creative freedom for us. And the matches last season are sort of in a vacuum where Klopp was leaving. They were very emotional matches because the FA Cup, we were going for all the trophies. This year I don't feel like there's as much pressure. I think going into this match now compared to last season with all those circumstances, I'm not feeling anywhere near as much pressure as I did that time. This match is Slot's first test against the big clubs, air quotes. And I think he's going to smash it. I think this is his chance to really show. Not a lot of people have heard of him before he came to Liverpool and he was linked with us. This is his chance to show why he's come to us against one of the biggest sides in European history, and I think he'll absolutely smash it.
I can't wait. I really hope that you're right on this one. I mean, obviously it's going to be a massive test for him, and it'll be a massive test for Ten Hag as well. Obviously they know each other, clearly not friends, as the press conference was, or as Slot alluded to in the press conference. I don't know whether you saw it. Did you see the actual quote? He basically said, we've got a good relationship. Same with Ruud van Nistelrooy and the other Dutch fella that they've brought in. And then someone asked him, are you friends? And he just went, no. But the media, I think, will glob onto that over the next 48 hours and try and make that into something. It wasn't. If Ten Hag ever watches it, it was just Slot telling the truth. He's like, I think he said the words like, a friend is someone you go out for dinner with and stuff like that. Yeah. And this is not the relationship that we have. There's a lot of respect there. But you can imagine that the media are going to drum this up over the next 2 days.
Oh, totally. Yeah, they've got the narrative there, don't they? The 2 Dutch managers. I'm sure, I haven't looked this up, but I'm sure they faced off against each other. Was there maybe one season of crossover between Ten Hag's Ajax and Slot's Feyenoord? I had a look actually at how Feyenoord did against their rivals under Slot, and you've got Ajax there who traditionally dominate Dutch football, and you've got PSV who last season just had one of the best seasons in Eredivisie history. I think with Ajax they'd won 3, drawn 2 and lost 1, and against PSV they'd won 2, drawn 1 and lost 3 possibly. So it's very even sort of there against teams who Feyenoord had a much lower budget than, but obviously there was massive rivalries and going for the titles. And I think in that time, Ajax won 1, Feyenoord won 1, and PSV won 1. So that's encouraging for that point of view, that even with a smaller budget, Arne Slot, even in those games, was able to compete with them. And I think last season he beat Ajax 6-0 and 4-0 possibly, which is quite the feat. If we can repeat that against Manchester United this year, we'll all be coming out of those grounds very happy. But no, It's his first big one in the Premier League. We'll have to see how it goes. It's possibly the biggest crowd and one of the biggest atmospheres he'll have ever managed in. So hopefully, we can take the emotion out of it, because if we take the emotion out of it and it becomes a bit of a robotic game, we're bound to beat them because we're better than them.
Yeah, and the other storyline that the people are going to sort of grab onto or hold on to over the course of the next 48 hours is that he went and managed there as AZ Alkmaar manager and lost 4-0 at Old Trafford, and hopefully he put that one to bed in the press conference himself.
Yeah, he was just saying, look, it was in the Europa League. We went away to Old Trafford. I was at a good team, but it wasn't a team capable of beating them at the time. Like, that match was so long ago, and I think Slot has massively evolved from his days at Alkmaar. And going back to what you said about the whole, are we friends thing, the Premier League, like journalists and everything, they love a rivalry in managers, because you had like Mourinho and Sir Alex Ferguson, Mourinho, Wenger, Guardiola, Klopp. Now it's like, well, who's
going to fill the void?
Who's going to fill the void? Oh, Slot and Ten Hag,
because they're both bald and Dutch.
Both bald and Dutch. Both come from the Eredivisie. That'll do. So I think that's just them trying to drum up a sort of managerial rivalry to just sort of discuss, because now that Klopp's gone, you've got Pep and on this level, and then everyone else is just a little bit, beneath that. So, but yeah, he's Slot. I feel like he's got a lot to prove, but at the same time he doesn't. But this match is the acid test. This is the proper. If you can get through this, then you're in a good stead to face the other big sides in the Premier League. Because for all that United are a basket case, for all they've changed and lost players, gained players, and it's such a mess behind the scenes, they do seem to have found a little bit of stability now going forward. The transfers make sense. Everything behind the scenes seems to be just sort of coming together ever so slightly. So putting your stamp down early of authority and beating this Man United side puts you in such good stead going forward. And who have we got after United? Is it the cup game after United, or is it Bournemouth?
Forest
next.
Champions League.
Yeah, so win this, and your momentum's just going to carry you through the other ones, I think, because this is such a huge game to go through.
Cool. Okay, let's have a little look at the league table then. Unfortunately, Manchester City are top already with 6 points out of 6. But joint top is Liverpool in 4th place with 6 points out of 6. Obviously, 4 goals for, none against, 2-0 wins. One against Ipswich, one against Brentford, of course. And Manchester United, lowly 11th with a classic goal difference of 0, which was pretty much them all last season long, wasn't it, to be fair? But Slot said something in his press conference that I thought was particularly interesting. And that was that he thinks Manchester United are playing in a slightly different way this season. Is that something you've seen so far this season?
I think they look a little bit tighter on the whole. Like, I mean, they couldn't really be more open last season, certainly in the games that we saw them. I think they've looked a little bit tighter against Brighton. They've still got a massive gap in between the defence and the midfield, and that's something that we can maybe come on to talk about, that whoever plays number 10, probably Szoboszlai, will have a big part in exposing, because he's going to have a lot of space there. It's interesting. It's funny because at the last game we played, United, the cup game, is that the last game, or was the league game after that? I'm not sure.
I think it was a 2-2 after that.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the cup game, Fernandes ends the game at centre half, and it's funny because he could start this game as a number 9. He's been playing there for them in the first 2 games, and he's sort of been dropping deep, and they do have pace in behind with Diallo and Marcus Rashford, which will probably be the wingers in this one. So they've quite a lot of players in the front positions in the midfield who are, in theory, central players. Mason Mount's now injured, but he's been playing. Casemiro, obviously Fernandes as well. So I think they've tightened up slightly in the middle. So I don't think it's going to be a case if we can just waltz through them at ease like we did in those games last year, but that could suit us as well. Another thing I noticed against Brighton, and Brighton had a lot of success with them. I saw a lot of people saying United played well against Brighton. It wasn't a horrendous performance, but Brighton still sort of outperformed them in the XG, obviously win the game, and caused them problems. But Brighton pressed them in a 4-2-4,
which is what Liverpool have been doing.
Which is what Liverpool have been pressing Ipswich and Brentford in, and they had a lot of success in that. And on top of that, Brighton's right back, can't remember who it was, but he was really, really jumping up to the left back, and the left back for Brighton was tucking in, which would suit Trent, winning the ball high up the pitch and having the ball obviously in positions where he can hurt the opposition, which is where we want Alexander-Arnold. So, there's a bit of blueprint set there by Hertzler and Brighton last week. Obviously, they get the job done. If we're doing that with better players and we get it right, I've no doubt that we can definitely win this game.
Well, obviously he's made a lot of signings. It looks like Lewis, he's got a lot of backing at the moment, Ten Hag from the board, and we'll come on to Liverpool, of course, later. But I think it's interesting to look and talk about the opposition, of course, especially with a game of this magnitude. But like Ten Hag looks from the outside like he's got the backing, but he was very, very close to not being the Manchester United manager at the end of the season and stuff. Like if he starts with 1 win, 2 draws, Liverpool deal him a massive blow, like a big tonkin. He's under pressure right from the off, and that's the last thing that he needed to start this season, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. United panicked because there was all the talk of they were going for like Kieran McKenna and all these other managers. Southgate.
I would have
Thomas
loved that.
Tuchel was linked at one point. Like United have just realised they can't get anyone better, so we're just going to have to stick with what they got. And it's a stubbornness that it could come back to bite them. I do respect the fact that they have stuck with him, like we've seen with Arsenal with Arteta, we saw at Liverpool with Klopp. The vision of clubs nowadays is long-term manager, someone who's going to be young, can implement a philosophy and stay there for a long time. If he didn't win the FA Cup, he'd be gone. That's just a fact. So him winning that, and the fact that they couldn't find any other alternative is the only reason he's in that job now. In my thought, we're going to see Van Nistelrooy as a temporary manager by the end of the season, because I don't think Ten Hag, for all that he's signing these good players, your Delats, your Ugarte, Xerxes, etc., it's his play style that isn't meshing with it. And I think the club have done that. I've seen that this window. I think they've signed players that any other manager can come in and get a beat out of. These young prospects, these great talents that you lose Ten Hag, someone else is going to have a great squad to work with. And we've seen that with Slot, where Klopp's left him this terrific team of players so that he's already got 1 foot. He's 1 foot ahead of where he should be. I think they're prepping for the same thing. They're being proactive because they know that Ten Hag probably isn't going to be there in the long term. It's just speculation, but if he does suffer a heavy defeat to us, that is a major stamp on the fact that he will not be there for a long time.
The only thing you would say about Ten Hag, it hasn't worked out as a whole, as you say, very publicly. Last year they were considering sacking him, and I wonder how he feels going into work on a Monday morning knowing that, ideally they'd have got rid of him and got someone else in. But against bigger sides, I think he does quite relish those challenges and those tactical battles. I mentioned, like, in the last five games we've played against them, 4 of them we've come out feeling a bit disappointed for whatever reason, because we're going for title races or because we've lost the game. Obviously, the big exception is the 7-0, and that supersedes everything for me. It's my best ever day supporting Liverpool. But even against Man City, FA Cup last year, they take them apart. They're 2-0 first half. They dominate them. I think they went 1-0 up at the Etihad last year and held them off for quite a long time. So he does relish these tactical battles. It's more against sort of the bottom 10. He can't break them down. They don't have the quality. They don't have that identity. But we're not a bottom 10 side. We're a top side with a top manager and one that he'll want to get one over on.
But that's what Solskjaer did, though. He would lose and lose and lose, and then he'd win one big game, and suddenly his job was saved. And Ten Hag's doing the same thing at the minute.
No, it's exactly right. And there's a point, isn't there, where yes, you keep getting results maybe in the bigger games, but it is about finishing higher up the league. And Manchester United aren't finishing higher up the league for themselves, are they? And it's very difficult, I think, to change a play style from a counter-attacking side into a ball possession side. It just is. It's just you can get in. I think you can get into the Champions League by doing it that way, but I don't think you can win the league anymore. Yeah. I think those days are over. The Mourinho days and all that, they're long gone. You do need to have more about you as a footballing side, and it's just whether I think you're right. He's very good at those tactical battles. I'll give him credit for that. But the game plan is to get them first in the league, and I just don't know whether he has the style of football to be able to do that. The other thing that I think quite interesting, I've never thought about it from what you were saying before, Lou, about how they're sort of signing players that the next guy could use. If that's the case, Sancho going, does that mesh with that? Because it looks like he's off to Chelsea now, obviously.
I mean, potentially
because they're addicted to transfers.
Oh, I don't even got the words to describe Chelsea.
They want a Calvert-Lewin. Chelsea want Calvert-Lewin.
They want everyone. They want everyone.
It's like Chelsea have a valuation for every player in world football. There isn't someone that you go in. They're just like fiends. You want this yet?
Yeah, but then they're kicking off saying that they need to get rid of players, and it's like, well, don't buy them all then. You're fine.
Stop it. I wonder if it's similar, to the idea that the reason Liverpool went for a Slot rather than an Amorim is because you wouldn't have to completely dig up what Klopp had done.
Yeah.
And therefore the players who signed in the last couple of years, in theory, there will be differences, would fit into Slot's system. And I wonder if that's the case, they're saying to Ten Hag, well, listen, we're buying the players for you, but also the manager who comes in after you. Well, I don't know how this Ineos Jim Ratcliffe thing is going to work, and whether they're thinking that far ahead or thinking the same way as the hierarchy at Liverpool do, but that would make sense. And as for Sancho, I've no real idea. I don't really know what type of player he is anymore.
Can I just say as well, while you mentioned Ineos there, I think it's one of the biggest scandals in football what the Glazers have pulled here.
Yeah.
I mean, they've basically sold around about a quarter of their company, and now they get none of the flack from this guy who essentially just runs a plant up in Scotland making plastic, that now thinks he's going to be one of the best football things in the world. And he's bringing in Mr. Marginal Gains himself, who I massively respect for his time at British Cycling, by the way. But there were some question marks over methods over the course of the years, certain bags that may have been delivered to a Bradley Wiggins during a Tour de France and stuff like that. So it is really quite interesting what they're doing and how the Glazers, I know they're not taking their £100 million out every single year anymore, but what you're essentially doing is you've employed somebody by giving them a percentage of your club to grow your asset. And if they grow it from 4 to 5 to £6 billion, and that's how they made a profit. But now no one's looking at them anymore. And it's all, if anything goes wrong, it's Ineos, it's Jim Radcliffe's fault and all this. Fair play to them. It's a hell of a con. And Manchester United have fallen for it. I mean, Ineos aren't running Manchester United, and yet Ineos is the word that's used all the time when you're talking about it. It's crazy.
I suppose they did give Woodward a fair bit of slack alongside the Glazers. We all know, and I cards on the table, I fully back the Manchester United fans in terms of their opposition to the Glazers. I do think a hell of a lot of it's disingenuous from certain supporters. For instance, protesting during lockdown, which got the game called off, and yet singing about poverty and singing about Scousers, and running off to welcome their new 60 million sign. I think a hell of a lot of it's disingenuous, but I think for the real United fans, the ones who go every week, the ones who really care about the club, they've absolutely got a case against the Glazers because they're absolute charlatans.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They absolutely are. Okay, we're going to move on to the Liverpool stuff now. Before we do, I've got a trivia question for everybody. We haven't done this in years, and I brought it back because I found a really old build-up show agenda to amend. So how many major honours have Liverpool won, and how many major honours have Manchester United won? We'll be back with the answers to that after this very quick break. London Reds, we are heading your way. It is a new era for Liverpool Football Club, and to celebrate, we're heading on the road with our very own new era tour, trademark pending. Our first stop is the Indigo at the O2 on Wednesday the 4th of September. We will be live on stage with a show filled with laughs, cheers, and maybe even a one-handed cartwheel or two. Not only that, but the amazing Keo will be performing, playing the best Liverpool anthems to get you singing and dancing with joy. If you'd like to come along, tickets are on sale now. Just head to axs.com, search the Redmen TV, and get your tickets to the best Liverpool show in town. So there you go. There was some video from our 2 sold-out shows, in one in Northern Ireland and one in Ireland. See what I did there?
Yeah, thank you.
That was very, very good. So, yeah, absolutely fucking fantastic evenings. I would just like to say the Northern Irish drank better than the Irish. The lads from Belfast, it was they were both incredible nights, but the lads in Belfast really went for it, and it was absolutely superb. We've got a live show in London next Wednesday. We're getting picked up at midday. I'll have a few beers on the way down. I'll limber up. We'll do cartwheels. If you want to come over and see us, it's the O2 at the Indigo. I don't know where it is, but it's in London somewhere. It might be the old Millennium Dome. I don't know. I shouldn't have said anything. I've got no idea. But we promise that you will have an absolutely brilliant night. But I also promise that you will not drink as much as the Belfast Reds, because that's almost impossible.
Proud of you, lads.
Honestly, both nights were absolutely superb. But I think it was like a flipping Thursday for Northern Ireland, and they were like really on it on a Thursday night. It was fantastic. So the trivia answer I should have to give you. Does anyone got it? No. 43 for United and 44 for Liverpool, says Callum's second account. Not according to the website that I checked, but the website that I checked said Liverpool 46, Manchester United 43. In conclusion, Liverpool are the most successful side in English football. And on that note, let's talk about the most successful side in English football history. And if you want to break it down by non-major trophies, we've still got one more than you as well. I think it's 69 to 68, but I'm not 100% sure because no one seems to update that stuff very often. Before we get on to it, lads, I've not spoken to you about Federico Chiesa, not Enrico Chiesa, like I've been saying all week, and massively showing my age, Lewis, but like, how excited are you for him? I know he's not likely to feature in the squad unless injuries happened, as confirmed by Slot this morning, but how excited are you to see Chiesa as a Red?
I'm over the moon. Right. For me, this is... People will say there's an injury crisis with him. He's suffered major injuries. He's loads of injuries. He's missed loads of games. Since that major one in 2022, he's missed like 4 games or something. He's had like 2 minor injuries. For £12 million, you've sold Bobby Clark for almost the same amount. You've sold Seth Vandenberg for like nearly 3 times that amount. This is a gamble which is costing us virtually nothing for a Euros winner, someone who's won multiple Scudettos, versatility in the front line when we've got Salah, who we don't know if he's going to be staying or going. We don't know what the future holds for him. We've got no natural right winger other than him, and Ben Doak's gone on loan. Kate Gordon's not quite ready. This is not even a risk, because the money that you'll put on him in today's market, if Anthony's 80 million and Chiesa's 12 million, that's an absolute bargain for someone who not long ago was touted at 100 million. And for all people give flack to the transfer window, Liverpool aren't buying this player, we're not spending this money. We are opportunists, and we've signed a long-term goalkeeper, and we've signed someone who at one point was valued as like one of the best right wingers in European football, and we've signed him for the price of a Fredo. So I've got absolutely no problem with it. I think it's an absolutely brilliant signing. Yeah,
I'm really excited. It's a bit of fun. It's a bit of a fun transfer, isn't it? It's there are reasons why it could go wrong. We all know that he had this bad injury, and for me, the concern isn't really whether he's going to be injured all the time, because as Lewis says, I think last season he plays 33 out of 38 games in the league, scores 9 goals. It's a good record. It's just whether he's quite the same explosive player since his ACL. We know what that can do to players.
Did you see the stat on this? No. So Opta put a stat out, and he registered at 36.2 kilometres per hour as his top speed last season. That would place him second behind Dom Szoboszlai out of all the top speeds of every Liverpool player from last season. Because I think he's lost a yard of pace as well. But judging by that stat from Opta, even if he has lost a half a yard of pace, he had it to burn.
Yeah, he does, and that's encouraging to hear that he can still sort of get up to that top speed. I suppose what I'm thinking about is that explosiveness off the mark. Yeah. The pushing off and getting that half a yard to beat a man. I'm saying that I don't know. I haven't watched him, but I'm just sort of thinking that would be my thing. It's the same sort of concern I have with Diaz post-injury, to be honest. But listen, I watched him down at the Euros. I went to the game where he scored against Spain, absolutely belting goal. He lit up that Euros. He was a fantastic player. And if we feel like we can get him back to that level, if he's not already at that level, and I think Liverpool's medical team seem to think that they've got the edge in terms of getting players back to full fitness, then that's a really, really exciting signing. A couple of things for me. It can't really be the only one that we do, and it seems like it is going to be the only one. And the second one is it can't be anyone's replacement, even in a year's time. I don't want that to be if Salah leaves next year, Chiesa's his replacement, or Diaz leaves, Chiesa's his replacement. This is a risk. It's a low risk transfer. It's a gamble, and I'm absolutely fine with it, as long as we're not going to have to hang our hat on him in a year's time.
Okay, I like that. I've given loads of opinion on it over the last couple of days, so I'll leave that to you guys. I thought it was really interesting, especially the point about him being a potential replacement for anybody. So we'll move on then. Injury update from Arne Slot himself said, at the moment there are no other injuries except for Curtis Jones. He will not train with us today, but the rest will train with us today. So that's obviously a good thing. It means that Kwanzaa's back in contention. Lewis, the big question I suppose around the lineup is just that then, is it Kwanzaa or Konate?
I think you got to stick with Konate. Like, no disrespect whatsoever to Kwanzaa. I think rushing them back is a bit foolish when we've got Konate and Van Dijk who are fully fit. And I think as well, we saw what happened with Kwanzaa last season. And that's not me saying, he's going to do the same thing where he passed the ball and obviously, he went on and scored. But I think the atmosphere, if he does get on the ball, it might be a bit hostile towards him and we could see his head go a little bit. He's shown he's massively professional. He's above what the age race should be. But I would rather Konate, who's a bit better in the air, can control the game a bit better, because this United side likes to press. I think Konate's calmer under pressure now than Kwanzaa is on the ball, personally. So I'd like to see just that same back line that we saw against Brentford, just the experienced players, just to keep things calm at the back. If you absolutely need to put Kwanzaa in, the only reason I can see it at the moment would be because he is maybe a little bit quicker than Konate on the turn, and United are going to try and get him behind. But other than that, I'd rather keep Konate in and just keep things stable at the back as they are, rather than trying to rush him back and chop and change too much.
I guess that's probably what everybody's thinking at the moment after a couple of really good performances from Konate. I can see you nodding along there, so if there's no difference of opinion, I'll move on to the midfield. And obviously a lot of talk about Ryan Gravenberch this season so far, a lot of talk about a number 6 coming into Liverpool. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. It's the first big test for him in this new role as well, isn't it?
It certainly is. He's passed the first 2 flying colours as far as I'm concerned. My concern was sort of him being deepest and taking the ball in the half turn. I wasn't sure he was that sort of player, but it seems that actually, even though in most aspects of the game Gravenberch's the deepest midfielder, it's actually McAllister who drops deepest to get the ball in the build up, which I think really suits us. And I thought he played well against Ipswich, but actually being in the ground against Brentford, I was really impressed with how he covered the ground and got across and was crashing into tackles. I think he's lucky at one point. Does he get booked, actually?
Yeah,
he's late on
leaves
one.
His feet, doesn't he?
He was late on one, but that was the only one he was late on. He makes everything else, and he was really, really strong. You're right, it's going to be a different kettle of fish, this time round. Bruno Fernandes dropping deep, that's going to give him something to think about. They've obviously got the 3 in the middle. Whoever comes in to replace Mount, it actually might be Fernandes deeper and maybe a Xerxes up front making his first start. So it's going to be difficult for us to predict their lineup and therefore to give Ryan Gravenberch a specific set of instructions as to what to expect. So he's going to have to adapt mid-game to whatever's happening. But, I think for this one, the first 3 games of the season before the international break almost need to be taken in isolation, because we haven't had anything midweek. We've just had these 3, get the points on the board, and then as I was saying to you upstairs, if we go through in the League Cup, we play every midweek until Christmas, aside from international breaks. So that's when your Kwanzas, your Jones and your Harvey Elliott's are really going to come into their own. They're going to get big games, they're going to get European games, they're going to get some Premier League games, and there's going to be a plan for those players. But for now, stick to what's working. We've scored 4 goals, we conceded none. Our XG 4 and against is better than anyone else in the league. Let's stick with that, see how it goes.
Absolutely. And Lewis, I think the one thing, and I keep banging this drum, and I will continue to keep banging this drum, is obviously there might be people in the comments or watching at home here who are thinking about, well, actually maybe this is a type of game for Endo and stuff, but I always reference back to Arsenal in the big games last season, because it wasn't Declan Rice that played in those games, it was Jorginho that played in almost every single one of those big games, because the biggest thing to them is not what the opposition team are doing, but they want the ball. Arsenal, Manchester City are exactly the same. And I think Arne Slot are exactly the same. So even if we had an Ugarte-style midfielder, I don't expect them to play in big games, because Liverpool want the football. That's how you beat teams. Yeah. And so for us, it's going to be great to see Ryan Gravenberch in that. And I just wonder whether moving into the second half as well, I think anyone who's watched the game so far will know that we've played better in the second half. But for me, again, being in the ground against Brentford and obviously watching the Ipswich game, it's that like you're almost bored them in the first half. It's like these little sideways, non-safe or safe passes, yada yada yada. And in the second half, you just see them sort of switch off a bit. Like it's going to be a 5-yard pass, and that's when Gravenberch bursts through the middle against Brentford. Can you see 2 players go over to Andy Robertson because they're expecting it? I just wonder whether we're going to continue to see that and sort of lull sides in and then sort of hit them in the second half.
Yeah, we need to. We've got to continue. There's no point trying to fix what isn't broken at the minute. I know it's only been 2 games. It's very early days, but it's working. We're getting the results from it. If you put Endo in that team, and it's no disrespect to Endo, but you're sort of welcoming the pressure on, and at Old Trafford we saw last season, you can't allow them all the pressure to go against you, because they will eventually break through. It's not we can defend like no one's business at the minute, but they keep going and going, they will. The best thing we can do is take the sting out of the crowd. And the way Arne Slot plays, people have compared it to Pep in the sense of he wants to pass, he wants to control the tempo of the game. If we do that and play like we did in the first half in the previous matches, where you just sideways slow it down, you take the sting out of the crowd, and then your opportunity to get at them. Because, like you said perfectly, they're expecting one thing, but then all of a sudden we switch on. Gravenberch's running through the middle, McAllister's getting forward, Trent and Robertson causing problems. So there's no point in us putting Endo in this team, changing what's working at the minute, inviting pressure onto ourselves. We need to keep this attacking momentum going. And there'll be people who say, well, it's Old Trafford, you've got to sit back a bit more. Why? Just go for it. That's what Slot wants. He wants to get at opposition defences. He wants us to attack with passion and actually put through balls through. Keep Gravenberch and McAllister in and you will get that. Put Endo in. I'm not saying he's awful, but you will allow them more time on the ball and more chance to get at us, because Endo's a more defensive-minded player than he is an attacking-minded player.
Absolutely. Okay. One player I think who's had a good pre-season, a really good end to the season, was Harvey Elliott. I know we're only playing one game a week. You mentioned it just a minute ago. How do you think he's feeling at the moment, and does he deserve a start?
I'd imagine he's been told, listen, for these first 3 games, we're going to go with this, but afterwards you're playing Real Madrid at home in the Champions League, or you're playing this away game, or you'll come in on the weekend against, I don't know, Bournemouth at home or something like that. I'd imagine there's a plan in place for him. I think I was given my my starting 11 on a show, my ideal starting 11, and after pre-season he was actually in the number 10 over Szoboszlai for me. I thought he was really, really impressive. Everything went through him in pre-season. We knew the number 10 role that wasn't really there under Klopp. I thought that's perfect for Harvey Elliott under Arne Slot, and he was almost controlling the entire operation, and with moments of magic like that chip over the top against Arsenal, I think it is, for the assist. Like he was really, really, really strong in that, and I don't know whether Slot's trying to condition him up to a level physically to play in the Premier League. Obviously we know that Szoboszlai's a big lad, and that is crucial in certain Premier League games. I thought Szoboszlai actually had a really poor game on the weekend. I thought he was really, really poor. There was one point, I'm not just saying this, but he could have played Conor Bradley in. He was in loads of space, and I was screaming at him to play the ball.
As was every Northern Irishman in the ground, by the way, of which there were loads.
And that sounds like I'm biased there, but that was just one of the. I think he was just a little bit off it, and that will happen. And it's a high risk position. You get the ball, and it's the hardest place to take the ball, because you've got people coming at you from every angle, and if it goes wrong, it can go very wrong, and you can look very obviously the worst player on the pitch at times. And I thought he actually was, just to balance that out, really, really crucial to the goals we scored against Ipswich second half. So
I thought he was really good in the first half, and I thought he quietened in the second for me.
Against Ipswich?
No, against Brentford.
On the
like I was in the Annie Road end, so noticed him more in the first half.
Yeah,
which is something that happens. Were you in the Kop?
I was in the Kop. So
there you go. That might have been the thing.
There we go. Maybe it was just all right. But listen, even so, I wouldn't mess anything around for this game. As I say, I think Harvey will have his time. He will come into the side, and he'll have a big role to play this season. But for this one, I think you have to go with the same 11. You have to.
Yeah, absolutely. You exactly the same, okay. Yeah. So I was going to ask what the starting 11 is for each of you, but we'll just have to go through what Liverpool played as last time then, which was Alisson Becker, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Konate, Virgil van Dijk, Andy Robertson, McAllister, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, Salah on the right, Diaz on the left, and Jota up front. There is a talking point around the front three though, Lewis. Obviously, I think I've said it myself, and I stand myself corrected. Like, I've said that Keyes is going to come in as the 6th choice. It's actually not, is it? It's 2nd choice right winger, and maybe 2nd choice left or 3rd choice left. Like, he's not really. I don't know. I know Slot said that he can play like centre forward. I do not see him as ever playing centre forward for us. But what was interesting is that Slot in his press conference, Lewis, said we've got 4 wingers, which already states that's Jota and Núñez to me up front, because he's using Gakpo, he's using Diaz, he knows Keyes is a winger and Salah, and that's just something that I thought was a bit different to what we've seen under Jürgen, isn't it? We sort of talk about them as a collective, but the fact that he said 4 wingers for me might give us an insight into how he thinks of the squad. Yeah,
and I said this a few times last season, I felt that an issue with a lot of them was they didn't know what their best position was. Like at one point we were saying, Núñez is a left winger, he looks good there, then he was a striker. Salah comes off the pitch, there was no natural right winger to deputise for him, so everyone was having to change position. And I like the idea of just, you are there, perfect that position, because while Chiesa's versatile in the sort of Xherdan Shaqiri sense, when we had him, where one game he was attacking midfielder, then he was right winger, then I think at one point he was left wing for a little bit. While that's nice, I'd rather someone not be a jack of all trades. I'd rather them just be a master of one. I'd rather them learn their position. And having Gakpo, who the big debate after the Euros is he's a left winger, play him on the left wing. He's doing that. Diaz, outstanding on left wing. It's nice to have an idea of where players are going to be, because if someone comes out, you know who's able to take over from them. I'm a bit surprised that Nunez has had the lack of game time he has, not because Jota's not been doing great, Jota's been outstanding, but I was so adamant coming out of pre-season that Nunez would thrive in this system, continuously getting balls to him, constantly trying to get him behind, but we've not seen a lot of him, and I don't think that's going to change going into this match, but I'm hopeful that when we get past this stage and maybe the international break and there's more games, that we're going to get to see more of him in those matches to see what he's capable of, which I'm sure we will. But
yeah, mainly because of an injury to Jota, unfortunately, because that's normally how that works, isn't it? We'll move on to some of the fixtures then. So far this weekend, Saturday 31st of August, Arsenal kick off at 12:30 to Brighton and Hove Albion. Brentford, Southampton, Everton, Bournemouth. Oof, tasty one for Everton. Tough game for them. Well, every game's a tough game. Ipswich, Fulham, Leicester, Villa, Forest, Wolves, West Ham host Manchester City. And then if we move on to Sunday, the 1st of September, Chelsea, Palace, Newcastle, Tottenham should be an interesting one. And then obviously Manchester United, Liverpool, 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon. What's the pick of the bunch there for you?
I think Arsenal-Brighton's going to be really interesting. Arsenal have been very impressive in the games where I've watched them. Against Villa, it could have gone either way, but they stem the tide. Raya comes up with a couple of big moments and they get the job done comfortably in the end. I think if they can get the job done comfortably this weekend against Brighton, which will provide a different test for them, then you're seriously looking at them as real title contenders once again. And the only other prediction I have is I think Ipswich will get their first win at home with Fulham.
Ooh, okay. I just want to say a big thank you to NRUS LFC, who's just joined as a Wonder Kid over on our YouTube memberships, which is fantastic. We are having a little bit of a change to the memberships, actually. As of Monday, you will be able to get every single Redmen Plus video on there as a new tier that's been created, but we'll talk about that closer to the time. So it just leaves me to come up with these score predictions. Lewis, I'll start with you, mate. What is the score going to be?
I did it on my channel. I've done like every match.
Good sport reviews, by the way, on YouTube.
I wasn't even trying to plug that then, but thank you.
Yeah.
So I
thought you were just describing them. Good sport reviews.
Be a good sport. So I said it's going to be 2-1 to us. I do think that United, they always seem to get up for it, apart from the 5-0, the 4-0, the 7-0, sorry. But like they always seem to come into this match with a bit more energy, and I do think they're going to get one. We are going to keep a clean sheet, I don't think, for this. But I think that we have more about us in midfield, and that seems to be where Slot's winning these matches mainly, is in the middle of the pitch, and I think that's going to be the same thing. So I'm saying 2-1.
Okay.
I think we're going to win 2-0. I think the second goal is going to be late. I think it's going to be one of those. I think that's the best goal in football. It's not the late winner. It's the goal that makes it 2-0 because you're celebrating the goal itself and also wrapping the game up.
Yeah. Like Salah's pen.
And like...
In fact, no, sorry, Origi's.
And like the goal. Do you remember that game we played United? It's in like 2010. Michael Owens just signed for them. I remember being in the ground that day, and we were 1-0 up. Torres scored. And the ground, I don't think we'd beaten United in years prior to that. And the ground was so nervous. And Sir Alex Ferguson did the most stupid thing I've ever seen. He brought Michael Owen on. And all of a sudden, the nerves just turned into abuse. Yeah. I went up the other end, thinking Gog scored, it was 2-0. What a day that was. So yeah, 2-0, similar game.
I think it's going to be 2-0 as well. I think it's going to be an early doors 2-0, just to be different. But I do like the idea of 3 wins, 6 goals, no goals conceded, 9 points. Sounds pretty good to me. I would love a little bit of that. There is one other piece of news actually before we go. Paul Joyce tweeted just as we were about to start to say that Liverpool defender Nat Phillips is set to make a move to Derby County on loan, which is mad, but but okay, wish him luck, of course. We'll be here throughout the rest of deadline day. Errol and Chloe are going to be here in the evening if anything happens. So yeah, big thank you to everybody. Just some score predictions from everybody else. Red v Red says 3-1 to Liverpool. KJSJ7 says 5-1, I'm assuming, to Liverpool. Our first goal at 4:20 for Arnie. Okay. Impressive. 1-0 Liverpool, says Niwab. And how'd you say that? Oisin? Oshin. I'm going with a 2-0 Mo and Gakpo from the bench. So there you go. Big win predicted for Liverpool by every Liverpool fan in the comments. Shock horror. We'll be back, of course. It's me and Paul for the watch along on Sunday. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. We'll see you there. Ta-ra.